ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله.
Bismillah in the beginning of the wudu is something which is recommended and preferred. وقد ورد في تسمية عند الوضوء أحاديث ضعيفة. And there are weak hadith which came in regards to doing the tasmiyah, saying Bismillah in the beginning of the wudu, but we said the hadith were what? Were weak. The hadith were weak. But the scholars, when they looked at the hadith being weak, they said that the meanings of the hadith are correct. And then we have other hadith which support saying Bismillah in any good thing that you do. And the hadith which actually came, وَلَا وُضُوء لِمَنْ لَمْ يَذْكُرِ اسْمَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ but له الشوائد كثيرة يرتقي بها لمرتبة الحسن. So the actual love, the pronunciation of the Prophet Muhammad that is attributed to him, or that he said that there is no wudu for the one who doesn't say Bismillah, then this hadith in particular is weak, but we have supporting narrations which support it and strengthen it and bring it up to the level of being Hasan, So then, as we mentioned, Imam Ahmed, he was the scholar who considered saying Bismillah to be what? To be wajib. But al-Jumhur قالوا أن التسمية سنة وليست بواجب. Right? So the rest of the scholars, Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, and Imam Shafi, all considered the tasmiyah to be what? To be sunnah, to be preferable, and not to be obligatory. So moving on. Okay. Moving on to things that validate the wudu. Okay? Things that validate the wudu. But before we move on to that, we want to talk about two of the sunnahs. Two of the sunnahs which many of us need some clarification about. One of them is al-madmada and al-istinshaq and al-istinthar. Okay, madmada, what is madmada? Rinsing your mouth. It's narrated in Sahih Muslim on the authority of Abdullah ibn Zayd that he was actually taught how to make wudu from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أنه تمضمض واستنشق من كف واحدة ففعل ذلك ثلاثا. That the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did his madmada and his istinshaq. Istinshaq is when you suck the water up into your nostrils. Okay? When you wash your nose, it's not just putting the water here on the entrances of your nostrils, it's actually sucking the water into your nostrils. That's what istinshaq is. Okay? This has many health benefits, also other benefits as well, right? It removes the mucus, it opens up the membranes in your nasal passages and things like this with the vibrations. It helps you if you have sinus problems and things like this. Many benefits that you get, not only physically, but also you're pronouncing the words of Quran. Many of those who may not be able to recite Quran properly, okay, is because they're not making istinshaq, because they're not cleaning their nose out properly. Because there are actually some huruf في علم التجويد التي ترتبط بالأنف والخيشوم, right? So in order for you to be able to pronounce the Quran properly, you need to be able to, right? First you need to clean your nose out properly, okay? And clean your nasal passage out properly, okay? Yes. So this is with a hadith that Abdullah ibn Zayd mentioned about the Prophet Muhammad is that the Prophet Muhammad would wash his mouth and his nose with one handful of water. There wouldn't be two separate handfuls. It wouldn't be 3 for the mouth and then 3 for the nose. It would be one scoop, the water would be in his hand, and then he would spit out the water in his mouth and then blow it out with his nose and remove any mucus or anything with his left hand. So it would be one handful of water for one time for his mouth and nose, and then he would remove it with his left hand. Okay? So this takes practice. We need to practice, need to teach our youth that that's the way the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made wudu. This is the sunnah in making wudu. Okay, it's not saying that if you don't do it that way, that you're not fulfilling an obligation and things like this. But we're saying we should try to raise our kids into how to make wudu according to what? To the sunnah, the way the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made it, and according to the best of their ability. Next thing that we talked about, مسح الرأس يكون مرة واحدة. Okay, that the wiping of the head is only one time. Okay, wiping of the head is only one time. Okay, فلا يتناوله التثنية والتثليث التي وردت مجملة في أحاديث صفة وضوئه صلى الله عليه وسلم. أما الروايات التي فيها التثليث مسح الرأس فلا يصح منها شيء. وأما الروايات التي فيها أنه مسحها مرتين فهي تأويل لقوله فأقبل بهما وأدبر. So this is very important in understanding how to wipe the head properly. The scholars, they've mentioned that wiping the head only has to be done once. It does not have to be done twice or 3 times. In any of the hadith or narrations which mentioned that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wiped his head 3 times, okay, are all weak. And the hadith which say, or could be understood, that saying that the Prophet wiped his head 2 times, okay, this is an understanding of the hadith that when the Prophet, he wiped his head, he went this way, and then he went back to the front. So this is the understanding that the scholars have said, where some of the scholars have said that the Prophet wiped his head 2 times. He didn't actually go like this. He went from once to the back, and then from the back to the front. Okay, and also, which is very common amongst some, is wiping the back of the neck. Okay, wiping the nape of the neck. This, we don't know that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did this. We don't have any of the companions describing the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ making wudu where he would actually take his hands and wipe like this or wipe like this, making wudu. He would wipe his head. He would stop at the bottom right here of where his hair ends, and then he would go back forward to where the beginning of where his hair starts on his forehead. Okay, on his forehead. So also another sunan of wudu. Okay, we stopped at number 4. Okay, we explained and we demonstrated how the Prophet would actually rub his hands. Okay, in the different part, he would, okay, as if he was massaging his body. Okay, التدليك, huh? We're going to get to that right now, right? Passing wet fingers through each other, okay? Which is called تخليل الأصابع. So the Prophet, he wouldn't just wash his hands like this, okay? He would actually put his fingers, okay, interlock his fingers like this and wash in between his fingers, get the knuckles, get the nails, and make sure that the water was actually entering into the places where dirt can hide and filth and maybe impurities can hide as well. Okay. Another thing, passing wet finger, takhleel al-lihya, okay, is also putting your fingers through your beard. For the brothers who have thick beards, such as this brother here, Dawood, myself, right? Then it would be right sunnah for us to, when we wipe our face and wipe our hands, that we get the water into the roots of where our beard is and the skin. Okay, that the water reaches the skin. As for brothers with small beards and things like that, it is enough just to wash your face. Next sunnah is wiping the entire head once. Wiping the entire head. Okay? Even though we have some fuqaha, Imam Shafi and other than them, Abu Hanifa, who mentioned that it is enough just to wipe part of the head. Okay? But the way that we understand the verse that it comes, right? وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, meaning your whole head and not part of your head. Okay? So with the women, they may find it difficult sometimes and things like this. They should try to the best of their ability to wipe all of their hair, whether it's tied in a ponytail or not, or a braid or something like that, wipe over it. That brings us to another issue, for example, wiping over the hat. Could you wipe over your hat or no?
No.
You can easily remove it.
If you can easily remove, yeah. The turban.
The scholars differ here. Okay, the Prophet, he used to wear what?
Turban.
And imam, right?
Yeah.
Did he ever wipe over it?
Yes.
Yes. So same thing with this. kufi. Taqiyya. You can wipe over the taqiyya as well. Okay? So you can, if you have an imama, because imamas are difficult to tie, right? Not the, like, you know, the bootleg ones that you have, you know, it's like, boop, you put it on. No. Right? The real imama, you wrap it, and you wrap it, and you wrap it, and you wrap it, and then you tie it, and then maybe it hangs two here, like our brothers in Sudan wear, the shuyukh over there wear, or in Mauritania, a lot of them wear that. Egypt, not too common, right? Yemen, sometimes they wear it, right? So it's a lot of wrapping. Old time in Turkish, you know, some of them, they still wear it. Right?
Remove the whole thing.
Chad. Huh?
Remove the whole thing.
You can remove the whole thing, but there it's usr, right? It's very difficult for you to do, right? So the Prophet, he allowed for us, if we wanted to actually wipe over the imama, if you wanted to, okay? But that's another issue, because we don't, not too many of us here wear imamas, okay? So the main point...
Wiping the head is a fard, it is not a sunnah.
Wiping the head is a fard, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is fard,
Yeah.
it's not a sunnah.
Yeah. That's what we said.
Once.
Yeah. But wiping the entire head is a sunnah. But some of the scholars, when they say that you have to wipe part of the head, for example, in the Shawafi' وعند الحنفية وعند بعض الحنابلة يقولون ربع، لكن ليس لهم دليل. ليس لهم دليل من الكتاب ولا من السنة. الدليل من الكتاب وامسحوا برؤوسكم، الله ذكر جميع الرأس. جميع الرأس، رؤوسكم من بدايته إلى نهايته, right? From the beginning of the head and the end of the head. So from the Sunnah, we're saying that, okay, maybe some scholars of fiqh, they have said that, okay, you fulfill the obligation if you just wipe 1/4. But you're not doing the Sunnah, because the Sunnah is to do what? The whole head. That's what we're talking about here, Shaykh. So next thing is to make dua afterwards. Make dua after making wudu. What is the dua after making wudu? Huh? وإيش الدعاء الوارد عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بعد الوضوء؟ أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Any other du'as? اللهم اجعلني من التوابين واجعلني من المتطهرين. Also, رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. These are the three du'as. There's probably others as well that came. وارد عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم in regards to what you say after wudu. Okay? After wudu. So we should teach our youth. Okay? We should teach our youth these supplications. Teach them how to make wudu, and then also teach them these supplications and what to say after they make wudu. So, what else is from the sunnah of wudu? Praying to rak'ah afterwards. Okay, as we mentioned, the hadith of Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu قال رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم توضأ نحو وضوء هذا. I saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam make the same wudu that I am demonstrating to you guys. وقال من توضأ نحو وضوء هذا ثم قام فركع ركعتين لا يحدث فيهما نفسه غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. That whoever makes a wudu the way that I demonstrated, that I saw the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ make wudu, and he doesn't become preoccupied about thinking about the worldly things or is distracted in his prayer, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him of his previous sins. Another hadith which came عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لبلال عند الصلاة صبح where Bilal, the Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to Bilal in the morning prayer, Ya Bilal, akhbirni bi arja amal amaltahu fil Islam. He said, Oh Bilal, tell me about the best type of things that you have done in Islam, the best type of actions. فإني سمعت دفن عليك بين يدي في الجنة. For indeed I heard the footsteps, right, of your sandals walking in the paradise. قال ما عملت عملا أرجع عندي أني لم أتطهر طهورا في ساعة من ليل أو نهار إلا صليت بذلك الطهور ما كتب لي أن أصلي. So he said that I didn't do anything except that I was hoping to receive the Jannah and the paradise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except that whenever I made a wudu, whenever I purified myself in any time in the morning or any time in the evening, except that after I purified myself and made ablution, then I would pray what? 2 rak'at after I made wudu. So praying 2 rak'ats after you make wudu, there's actually a specific sunnah prayer that you can make called sunnat al-wudu. Okay? So now let's move on, things that validate the wudu. Yeah, one question, inshallah.
Is there a madhab that makes a distinction between a fard wudu and a sunnah wudu, whereas the people do not wash their mouths and slip?
Yes. Yeah, different madhabs have different understandings of whether different parts are either sunnah or wajib or fard and wajib. The scholars of the Ahnaf, the Hanafiya, they differentiate between what is fard and what is wajib. Right? They have a different understanding of what is fard and what is wajib. Fard is whatever came with nusus qat'i thubut from the Quran or hadith mutawatir, and fard is wajib is whatever came with hadith al-ahad and other nusus such as this. But the majority of the opinions of the scholars, the Hanabila, the Shawafi, and the Malikiya, have the understanding that fard is the same meaning as what? As wajib. Fard is the same meaning as wajib. But as I mentioned, you're going to find differences amongst the scholars which mention, in some of the things that we mentioned, they're going to have difference of opinion in regards between the sunnah affairs and some of the obligatory affairs. So they might be sunnah amongst some, but they might be obligatory amongst other scholars. Okay? Now we're going to move on to nawaqid al-wudu. Okay? Nawaqid al-wudu وَهِيَ مَا يُبْتِلُ بِهَا الْوُضُوء. So, nawaqid al-wudu are the things which invalidate one's what? Wudu. Who can mention to us some of the things that invalidate wudu? Nawaqid al-wudu. نحن الآن نتحدث عن الأشياء التي ينقض وضوءك. أنت توضأت الآن، هذا الشيء حصل معك، نقضت وضوءك. إخراج الريح، أو إخراج البول، أو إخراج الغائط، أو إخراج أي شيء من السبيلين. Right? Or anything which is excreted from your 2 private parts. Okay, this breaks the wudu. Okay, this is the easiest way to put it. Anything that comes out of your 2 private areas. Okay? خروج البول أو الغائط أو الريح من السبيلين. What is the sabilain? Okay, al-furuj, al-khubul wal-dubur, right? The front private part and the back private part. So no matter what it is, whether it's wind, whether it's many, semen, okay? Whether it's, we have other things as well, called madi and medi and wadi and things like this. We're not going to get into details and too much about those things because there's big ikhtilaf and whether they break the wudu or they don't break wudu. The main things we want to talk about.
Solid or fluid?
Solid or fluid or gas. Right. Rih. Right. So any gas which comes out that you hear the sound or you smell it, this invalidates wudu. Any urination, any defecation, any semen that comes out, these things invalidate your what? Invalidate your wudu. Okay, فَأَمَّا الْبَوْلُ وَالْغَائِطِ فَلِقَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى أَوْ جَاءَ أَحَدٌ مِنْكُمْ مِنَ الْغَائِطِ. And the proof for urination or defecation breaking our wudu is what Allah, He says, or if one of you comes from which comes out, it is actually the name of the place in which you do that thing, in which you answer the call of nature. And this is from the beauty وَمِن جَمَالِيَاتِ الْكِتَابِ الْكَرِيمِ, Quran al-Kareem, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't use the type of language that normal people uses, right? He named the place in which you do that thing. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't talk about these type of things. He doesn't use these type of words like defecation and things like that. Even though it is understood that what you do in that place is what? Is number 1 and number 2. So this is from the beauty of the Quran and the beauty of the language that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses in the Quran. والغائط كناية عن قضاء الحاجة من بول أو غائط. Right? وقد أجمع العلماء على انتقاد الوضوء بخروجهما من السبيلين. Right? And the scholars are having consensus that if urination or defecation comes out of the two private areas, then it what? Then it invalidates the wudu. أما خروجهما من غير القبل أو الدبر كالخروج من جرح في مثانة أو البطن فالتنازع فيه العلماء فمن اعتبر الخارج وحده كأبي حنيفة والثوري وأحمد وابن حزم قالوا ينقض الوضوء بكل نجاسة تسيل من الجسد من أي موضع خرجت. Okay. ومن اعتبر المخرجين كالشافعي قال ينتقض إذا خرج منهما ولم يكن نجسا كالحصاة ونحوها. وأما الريح فإن خرجت من الدبر بصوت أو بدونه فانتقاض للوضوء. كذلك اجتماعا لقوله لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. So, as for, pay attention, as for defecation or urination coming out of a part of the body which is other than the two private areas, let's say it comes out the side, right? Somebody has a what are the bags? A colostomy bag. Okay, or it comes out another place besides. Okay, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all and cure all of our brothers and sisters who may be sick and give them shifa. So, as for urination or defecation coming out of areas in your body other than those two areas, then the scholars have big differences of opinion. Okay, and they have big, debates. So we're going to talk about it right now, right? So whoever considers, okay, that anything that comes out of your body, no matter where it is something that breaks the wudu, such as Abu Hanifa, such as Imam Sufyan al-Thawri, such as Imam Ahmed, and such as Ibn Hazm, then they say that any type of najasa that comes out of your body anywhere, then this thing what? Invalidates the wudu. It doesn't matter where it comes out from, okay? It doesn't matter where it comes out from. But whoever considers it to be specifically, okay, that it has to come out of those two things, such as the Shafi'i scholars, then they say that what? يَنْقَضِ إِذَا خَرَجَ مِنْهُمَا وَلَمْ يَكُنْ نَجِسًا كَالْحُصَاةِ وَنَحْوِهَا, right? That if it comes out from those two things, okay, those two areas, okay, and it is not najis, such as stones, kidney stones and things like this, then it doesn't break the wudu. But if it other than kidney stones, then it would what? Then it would break the wudu. So it all depends on, right? Do they specify those two areas and anything coming out of those two areas as wudu, or it's any type of thing which is impure coming out of the body? Okay. So next thing, khuruj al-mani wal-wadi wal-madhi. Okay. Semen, if it is excreted from the front private area, then it what? Then it validates wudu. And this is ijma'. Okay, this is ijma', consensus of the scholars of fiqh. Okay, and when these type of things are excreted from our body, this necessitates that we do what? Take ghusl and not wudu. Okay, you have to have the bigger ritual purification. وَكُلُّ مَا يُوجِبَ الْغُسْلِ يُبْتَلَ الْوُضُوء إِجْمَاعًا. And everything which necessitates you take a ghusl automatically what? Invalidates your wudu. وَالَّذِي نَاقِضْ لِحَدِيث عَلِي ibn Abi Talib رضي الله عنه قال كنت رجلا مذاء فأمرت رجلا أن يسأل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لمكان ابنته فأسأل فقال توضأ واغسل ذكرك. رواه Bukhari wa Muslim. So we get this from the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib, in which he says about himself, I was a man who was very easily excited. I was somebody who would get excited when I would be around my wife. Who was his wife? Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So out of my love and my respect and my honor for the Messenger of Allah, I was very shy to go ask him about this situation, because it involves who? It involves his daughter. So I sent another person to go ask for me about somebody who experiences these type of situations where he excretes semen easily when he's excited and things like this. So he went to the Prophet Muhammad and asked him, and he said to what? He sent somebody to ask the Messenger of Allah. So the Messenger of Allah, he said, right, make wudu and wash your private parts. Make wudu and wash your private parts. So that is what one would do if he finds himself in the similar situation. وَنَحْوُ الْوَدِي. Okay, al-wadi, what is wadi? Okay, what is the difference between al-wadi and al-madhi? Okay, wadi and madhi is a fluid which actually comes out when someone is excited, whether it's male or female. Okay, one comes out before the excretion of the seminal fluid, one comes out after. Some they translate it to be prostatic fluid. Okay, prostatic fluid. فالواجب فيهما أن يغسل فرجه ويتوضأ. Okay, if these type of excretions come out, other than semen, if they're wadi or madhi, prostatic fluid, which either comes out before or after having intimate relations with your spouses and things like this, then you need to do what? You need to wash your private area and make wudu. But it doesn't what? It doesn't take a ghusl. Doesn't take a ghusl. وقال ابن عباس المني والوذي والمذي أما المني فهو الذي منه الغسل. Abdullah ibn Abbas, he explained, he says al-mani wal-wadi wal-madhi, he says as for seminal fluid, then it is something which obligates or necessitates that you take a ghusl. أما الوذي والمذي واغسل ذكرك ومذاكريك وتوضأ وضوءك للصلاة. So he said, wash your private area and wash your two friends, which are for the men. Wash your two friends, you guys understand what I'm saying, right? Wash your two other friends and make your wudu that you would normally make for prayer. Okay? Is that clear? ممتاز. Good, let's move on. النوم المستغرق الذي لا يبقى معه إدراك. Okay, the next thing that breaks the wudu is what? Deep sleep. Deep sleep. Okay, deep sleep. اختلفت الآثار الواردة في الوضوء من النوم وتعارضت ظواهرها فهناك أحاديث تدل ظاهرها على أنه ليس في النوم وضوء أصلا وأخرى يوجب ظاهرها أن النوم حدث فذهب العلماء فيها مذهبين. Okay, so we have many narrations, many hadith which were narrated from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, from the companions, in the issue as to regards does wudu or does sleeping nullify the wudu or not. So when we look at them in their apparent meanings, we may consider them to be what? Contradictory or conflicting. We have some that say when you sleep it breaks the wudu. Others say that while the companions were sitting up and their heads were bobbing and they were sleeping and they were waiting for the prayer and it didn't invalidate wudu. So we want to talk about a little bit what did the scholars say in the issue. So the scholars, they have two understandings, okay? They took two opinions in the issue. Two opinions, okay? مذهب الجمع ومذهب الترجيح. Okay, this is from the principles of what they call مختلف الحديث. Okay, anytime you have two hadith, anytime you have a bunch of hadith in which the apparent meaning is seemingly contradictory or seemingly conflicting, then there's different steps that the scholars used in order to remove any type of misunderstanding or any type of apparent conflict. So the first thing that they would do, the scholars would try to do is what? Al-jama'. They would try to gather up all the hadith and then try to explain them collectively. Okay, then they would do what? Al-nasakh. Okay, look, whether to see this hadith is abrogated and this hadith is abrogated. One hadith happened early and another hadith happened later. They would look at the time at the hadith. What time did the event happen? Third step would be to do what? Al-tarjih. To do what? Figure out, look into the asanid of the hadith. Look into the authenticity of the narrators. Look at the biographies. Look at who narrated the hadith. Did Bukhari narrate it or did Ibn Majah narrate it? Okay. Did Muslim narrate it or did Darimi narrate it in his Sunan? All of these are things that the scholars would use to be principles in which they can determine which evidences were what? Were stronger and which evidences were weaker. And if they went through all of those steps and they couldn't come to an conclusion, then they would do what? A tawaqquf, right? They wouldn't take an opinion in the issue, and they would say, Allahu A'lam, I don't know. And then that necessitates that you either act upon both sides, both of the hadith, or that you don't act upon either of them. So, فَمَنْ ذَهَبَ مَذْهَبَ التَّرْجِيحِ إِمَّا أَسْقَطَ الْوُضُوء مِنَ النَّوْمِ مُطْلَقًا. As for those who took the opinion of looking at the evidences and considered one evidence to be preponderant and stronger than the other one, right? They إِمَّا أَسْقَطَ الْوُضُوء مِنَ النَّوْمِ مُطْلَقًا. Either they chose the opinion that the sleeping person who loses consciousness or any type of sleep, that they do not have to make wudu at all. That's one opinion. وَقَالَ لَيْسَ بِحَدَثٍ. And they say that, right, sleep is not a hadith. Sleep is not what? Something which invalidates your wudu. وَإِمَّا أَوْجَبُهُ مُطْلَقًا. Or they have made it obligatory, absolutely obligatory. So they either made it absolutely not obligatory or absolutely what? Obligatory. Okay? وَقَالَ النَّوْمُ حَدَث. They said that noam, sleeping, is a what? Is something which breaks your wudu. وَمَنْ ذَهَبَ مَذْهَبَ الْجَمْعِ. Okay? And those who went to the opinion of gathering up all the nusus, and they explained it in detail. They said, النَّوْمُ لَيْسَ حَدَثًا وَإِنَّمَا هُوَ مَظِنَّةً لِحَدَث. Okay? They say that sleeping in itself is not something which invalidates your wudu, but it is something which leads to you possibly opening the doors up to break your wudu. Because when you're unconscious, you don't have control over your what? Over your bodily organs. You don't know what's going out. Okay? So that is one opinion. Okay? وَهَؤُلَاءِ اخْتَلَفُوا فِي صِفَةِ النَّوْمِ الَّذِي يَجِبُ مِنْهُ الْوُضُوء فهذه ثلاثة مسالك للعملاء تفرع منها ثمانية أقوال. Here, right? So we don't want to get into too much detail. There's about 8 different statements in regards to what type of sleep breaks the wudu or doesn't break the wudu. So the strongest opinion, inshallah, is the type of sleep in which the individual becomes unconscious. And he has no idrak. He doesn't know what's going on. He can't hear voices. He doesn't know what's coming out of his body. Then this is something which what? Which breaks the wudu. As for the drowsiness, the sina, right? The light sleep like this, where you're sitting in the car, you're relaxing, you can hear, the Quran playing on the radio, you can hear the brother talking to you when he's driving, your eyes are just closed and you're just resting, then this doesn't invalidate wudu, because we have hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said that, or the companions actually explained that the companions during their time, they would wait and be sitting on the walls of the masjid, waiting for Salat al-Isha to be announced, to be called the adhan, and their heads would be down like this. They would be sitting up, but their heads would be sitting down like this. So the type of sleep in which you can hear things and are still conscious, this doesn't break the wudu. But the type of sleep which you are unconscious, okay, actually breaks the wudu. Some people, they snore, but they hear and they're still conscious. Yeah, it doesn't necessitate deep. So you know when you've lost consciousness or when you haven't lost consciousness.
But one has to take care of himself and to be careful about how he is sitting and that and that.
The Sheikh, he said that somebody needs to be careful about the way he sits, the way he's, because it could lead to sleep. You could be laying down like this on your side, and there's 15 minutes left for Isha, but then you go down like this, and then you're out, right? You're out for 10 minutes. It happens sometimes when you're exhausted in the summer, you're working a hard job and things like that, and you just get knocked out. So this would what? This would invalidate your wudu, even if you're sitting up, and you could be totally unconscious. So this would invalidate wudu, okay? So next thing, losing intellectual capacity, okay? Losing intellectual capacity, okay? So let me just read the rajih in the masala about النوم. أن النوم المستغرق الذي ليس معه إدراك بحيث لا يشعر صاحبه بالأصوات أو بسقوط شيء من يده أو سيلان ريقه ونحو ذلك فإنه ناقل الوضوء. These are what the scholars have said. What is the criteria to know if you have entered into that state of deep sleep or not? They said that, number one, if you don't know what's going on around you, you don't hear, you don't see anything, right? You don't hear sounds, as I mentioned. Or if you're holding something in your hand, maybe you're laying on your bed and you're reading, and the book drops from your hand. This is a sign that you have what? You have fallen asleep and lost consciousness. Or you're drooling from your mouth, right? All of us drool sometimes, right? You wake up, your pillow's all wet, and things like this. This is a sign that you have what? That you have, right, had deep sleep and you have lost consciousness, okay? فإنه ناقض للوضوء لأنه مظنة للحدث سواء كان قائما أو قاعدا أو مضطجعا أو راكعا أو ساجدا. Doesn't, no matter what type of position you're in. If you're making sujood, sometimes in Ramadan, you get exhausted. You come for the tahajjud prayer at 2 in the morning. The brother, he's praying one rak'ah, you know, mashallah, half an hour reading, half an hour ruku, half an hour sujood, and you're in sujood and you're out. You start drooling in your sujood. You're gone, all right? You've slept, okay? You've slept. لا فرق بين الشيء من هذا فإن كان أصحاب القول الأول يعنون بالنوم هذا النوم فنحن معهم وإلا فالنوم اليسير وهو النعاس الذي يشعر الإنسان بما تقدم لا ينقض على أي حال كان. الحديث نوم الصحابة حتى تخفقوا رؤوسهم وحديث ابن عباس في صلاته مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وبهذا تجتمع الأدلة كلها الواردة في أبواب ولله الحمد والمنة. And as we mentioned, right, we have the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad that talks about the companions, how their heads would be bobbing while they would be sitting up on the walls of the masjid waiting for the prayer. So, next thing, زوال العقل بالسكر أو إغماء أو الجنون. Okay, losing intellectual capacity, whether it's because you fainted, okay, whether it's you went under the knife, maybe you had an operation, okay. You had an operation where you had to have what? Anesthesia or things like this, okay? These are something which what? Invalidate your wudu. If you became drunk or high, okay? You became intoxicated, okay? And you lost your intellectual capacity, then these things also invalidate the what? The wudu. Or you became insane. Okay, may Allah protect us all and protect all of our families and all of our youth. Alright? If you became insane, this would also what? Okay, this would also validate your wudu. Next thing, eating camel meat. Okay, anybody ever ate camel meat? أهل السودان سوادنا Allah يزول Allah. Camel meat is very delicious, mashallah. Well, you have to try it, inshallah. Next time you guys go for Hajj or Umrah, inshallah, go. There's a special restaurant I would recommend. It's called Kebsat Hashi. Kebsat Hashi, they make kebsa, you know, the rice and things like this, and they make the camel meat. So delicious. Actually, they say it's more healthy for you than what? Than beef. Okay? They say beef has more concentration of fat than camel meat. Okay? Hashi is the young camel, the tender camel. Like they have veal and cows, the hashi is the young camel. So the meat is very tender. Okay? So the scholars, right, we're going to go upon the opinion in which eating camel meat breaks the wudu. Okay? Eating camel meat breaks the wudu, and we know that there are some scholars, from amongst them the scholars of the Hanafiya, who do not take the opinion that eating of camel meat breaks the wudu. But we have a clear hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that when the companions came to the Messenger of Allah and they asked him, they says, "O Messenger of Allah, if we eat the meat of al-ghanam, if we eat the meat of lambs or sheep, does it break the wudu?" He says no. He says make wudu if you want. But then he said, if we eat the meat of camels, does it break wudu? He says yes, you should make wudu after you eat the meat of camels. And the last thing that invalidates the wudu is what? Ar-ridda. Okay? Is ar-ridda. Is doesn't only break your wudu, it breaks your life. هذه في هذه الدنيا وفي الآخرة. Right? Ar-ridda is apostating from Islam. Okay? If somebody apostates from Islam, they say a kalimatul kufr and they mean it in their heart and they believe it, then they have what? Exited Islam. Then the only way they can come back to Islam is take the shahada again, take another ghusl, wash themselves, clean themselves, and exit or enter into the religion again. Enter into the religion again. Okay? So any questions about the things which invalidate the wudu before we move on? Is that the adhan already? What about touching the private parts? Okay? What about touching the private parts? Does touching the private parts break the wudu? Scholars, big difference in opinion as well. Does touching the private parts, if you touch it wearing a garment, does it break the wudu or doesn't it break the wudu? Or touching your private parts without a garment, does it break the wudu or not break the wudu? Big difference of opinion amongst the scholars. So the scholars, they say, if you touch it, if you touch your private area with some type of clothing in between it, then it doesn't break your wudu. If you touch yourself, okay, with the intention to do something which is related to your desires and things like this, right, with your hand, then it breaks your wudu, okay, with shahwa. Okay, but if you have the intention that you're cleaning yourself and things like this in the shower and things like this, and you don't have the intention to do anything related to your desires, then it doesn't break your wudu. But the most safest approach, khurujan ala al-khilaf, okay, to get away from any of the differences of opinion, is that what? Is that if you touch yourself, no matter without a garment between you and your genital areas, is that you should make wudu, just to be safe and get out of any of the differences of opinion that the scholars may have. Okay? نعم؟ ايش تقصد انت؟ ها؟
That's what he said.
No, yeah.
تعال هنا عشان تسمعنا يا حبيبي. ها؟ ان شاء الله. الله يرضى عليك ان شاء الله. الله يرحم والديك ان شاء
Quick question, Sheikh.
الله. Yes.
What about people who are, I didn't know what you say about people who, for example, have a urine bag or
Okay.
a colostomy bag,
All right.
no control, and then people who are senile.
People who are,
Senile.
okay, who may be considered
They might
legally
make wudu, but they don't remember.
insane.
Well, not
Okay,
insane, but
partially
no memory,
insane.
no memory.
Okay, maybe Alzheimer's disease and
Yes.
things like that. Okay, that would fall into the category of them having some intellectual disabilities and things like that. So we would look at, there might be sometimes with people with Alzheimer's disease, sometimes they have their mental capacity, sometimes they remember, other times they don't. So what the scholars of fiqh, they said that the pen is uplifted from the person who is crazy until he gains what? Sanity. But as for the one who has partial sanity, then we would say, well, the time that he has sanity, then he should do those things. And the time that he maybe has lost his sanity or he lost his memory and things like this, then he wouldn't be obliged to make those things, and Allah knows best. No.
واللمسة الأجنبية.
Huh? What is it?
اللمسة الأجنبية.
ما
يعني السلام
لمس المرأة.
لمس المرأة بالشهوة أو بغير شهوة. أيوة. This is also amongst the scholars of the Shafi'iyya, right? And other of the scholars, some of them have taken the opinion. The Shaykh asked about touching a woman. Touching a woman, does it invalidate your wudu or not? The scholars, they've also differed very much in this opinion. Some of the scholars, such as Imam Shafi, or which is attributed to him, is that if you touch a woman, no matter in any case, whether it's with desires or not desires, then it what? Invalidates your wudu. The other scholars have taken the opinion that, right, if it's done out of desire, okay, if it's done out of desire and it's a foreign woman who's not related to you, then it breaks the wudu. If it's not done out of desire, if it's done unintentionally or out of mistake or things like that, then it doesn't invalidate the wudu, and Allah knows best.
What about the person with the colostomy bag or the urine
We'll
bag?
take questions, inshallah, in the end, bi'idhnillah. So write them down, inshallah. We want to keep going, inshallah, so we can cover. We have a lot of stuff to still cover, and we're running out of time. All your questions are very important. We want to address them all, inshallah. And actually, we have a Q&A session when? Tomorrow, after Isha, inshallah. So, when should one make wudu? Okay, we learned about the sunan, the arkan, the wajibat, and things like this related to wudu. Things that nullify the wudu. When should one make wudu? Number one, before praying. Number two, before touching Quran. What about reciting Quran?
No.
Do you have to have wudu or no?
No.
Should you have wudu or no?
No.
You should have wudu. We're talking about what you must have and what you should have. Anytime you make dua, anytime you're reading the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's always preferable and recommended that you be in your best condition, physically and spiritually. Okay? And the chances of your dua being answered are more when you are in the state of what? Purification, and in the state of wudu, in the state of tahara. Okay? Another time that we should make wudu, okay, which is from the sunnah, is before you go to sleep. Many of us overlook this. Right? We go to the bathroom, we brush our teeth, but we don't make wudu, and we just go lay down. Many of our brothers and sisters in our day and time are being affected with waswasa, whisperings of the shaitan. Some, may Allah protect us all and protect all of our kids, by jinn. So many things, nightmares. Okay? Making wudu, something as simple as making wudu can, inshallah, be a means of prevention, preventive medicine for these things from occurring. Okay? So try to make it from the sunnah that you practice on a daily basis is to make wudu before you go to sleep. Okay? Also, making tawaf. Okay? If you're going to Mecca to make Hajj or Umrah, right, you cannot make tawaf while you have broken your wudu. You have to have wudu. As for sa'i, then you can make sa'i without wudu. That's not a problem, right? But as for tawaf, you have to be in a state of wudu. If you break your wudu in the middle of tawaf, then what do you have to do? Make up the whole tawaf, or only make up that one time that you go around that you missed the wudu? This is another issue that the scholars differ in. Some say you only make up the shot, some say that you make up the whole tawaf because it is a complete action of worship. Okay, any other times that you should make wudu?
You can make it with a ghusl,
Okay, that's another thing. All right, we're going to talk about that. Does washing the deceased nullify the wudu or not? Okay? Some scholars say yes, some scholars say no. Okay? Difference of opinion. And this is from the mercy of the religion of Islam. There's a famous statement which is attributed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where it's mentioned, he says, right, ikhtilaf al-rahma, that the differences of opinion is a mercy. And what is intended by this, it's not a hadith or anything like that, it's a statement of some scholars and things like this. What they mean by that is the variations that the scholars of fiqh had in the way that they understand the nusus makes the deen so easy for everybody to practice, based upon proofs and evidences that they had extracted their opinions from. It doesn't mean that differencing in issues of aqidah is mercy. It means that differing in issues of what? Of jurisprudence issues, it makes it easier for all the different worshippers to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way which is easiest for them. What about when you have intimate relations with your spouses?
Yeah, some say you should.
Some have hadith. If you're going to go for round number 2, then you should make what? Make wudu. Okay? Make wudu. And then when you're done, knockout, TKO, you're knocked out, you're done, then you should take a ghusl. Okay? Take a ghusl to remove the janaba and the impurities that you may have. So we haven't even moved to the prayer yet. Pillars, and this is like the lub of the durus. Okay? How much time do we have for?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, so inshallah, hopefully maybe we can do like we did last night. Inshallah, we'll eat dinner after Isha, and then we'll continue on after dinner, bi'idhnillah. So I'll keep going until the, or maybe we can take a couple questions now. Would you guys like that? Take a couple questions now until the iqamah, or till the adhan. What time is the iqamah?
Actually, it's 10 minutes to the iqamah.
Oh, 10 minutes till the
We're
iqamah.
gonna make adhan and iqamah combined together.
Okay, mumtaz. All right, so we'll take questions, then we'll start the prayer after Salat al-Isha, inshallah.
The
So,
second part of my question was the people of a urine bag or colostomy.
okay, colostomy bag and things like this.
Yeah.
In this cases, also the scholars, they have big difference of opinion in regards to anything that comes out of the body. And like I said, right, they have two madhabs. Some consider anything that any type of impurity that comes out of your body, no matter where it is from, that this breaks the wudu. That this breaks the wudu. Other scholars, they said no. It has to only come from the private areas, either the front or the back, which breaks the wudu. So I would recommend that the brother, he take the second opinion to make it easier for him, right? To make it easier for him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And this is from the characteristics and the traits that a faqih should have, right? At-taysir ala al-ibad, right? At-taysir wa ghafar haraj, right? To make things easy for the worshippers, as long as there is proof for it, and as long as it is within the what? The Sharia, the understanding of the Sharia, and as long as you have valid opinions from the great scholars of fiqh and the great scholars of jurisprudence. Yes. Any questions from the sisters? If the sisters have questions, send up papers, please, inshallah.
So control matters, right? You can
Control.
control what comes out from, right? If you can't control it, there's some people who might have a certain illness, they can't control.
Some people have diabetes, right? Some people have diabetes, they can't hold it. They go right on themselves.
As people
Still
get
breaks the
older,
wudu.
urine can come out sometimes.
Well, that's a different story. That's a different case, right? For somebody who has excessive excretion of urine and things like this, this is another scenario. This is another scenario. You know, they might have to wear diapers and things like that when they get older and things like this. This is called what in fiqh? Anybody know? Salas al-bawl, right? Somebody who has constant urine drips and things that come out. Some of the scholars say that you just wash your private area. Others say that you have to make wudu. So that's another big issue of different amongst the scholars as well. Yes, brother.
Okay, when it comes to wiping over the head, how are the ears involved?
Mumtaz. The brother, he asks, when wiping over the head for wudu, how do the ears become involved or included in making wudu? Because we would say that the ears are part of the what? The head. The ears are part of the head. And we actually have narrations about how the Prophet Muhammad when he would wipe his head, he would wipe like this. Okay, then there's different narrations. Some narrations say that after he wiped his head, he would take new water for his ears. Other narrations say that he would use the same water from his head, the excess water from his head, and he would wipe his ears with them. So he would put his pinky fingers in his ear and take his thumbs and he would wipe them behind the back of his ears as so. Inshallah. So the ears are actually part of the head, just how the mouth and the nose are part of the face. Okay, even though they weren't mentioned in the ayat al-wudu, فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ. Right? We have the mouth and the nose entering into the parts of making wudu because we have the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad actually explaining what is the face in wudu. And that's very important, that we cannot understand how to practice our religion properly except with the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Somebody who says, right, we have some sects which have emerged, unfortunately, and many in Europe, there are many here as well, where they only believe that the Quran is the main source of the religion. These people, unfortunately, have exited the fold of Islam. May Allah guide them and may Allah bring them back.
Amen.
Because you can't even establish the 5 pillars of Islam without the Sunnah. How can you be? When do you pray? In the Quran. If you only go by the Quran only mentions 2 times to pray. Once in the morning, once in the evening. That means you've abandoned 3 other prayers. Okay? Let's go to zakat. How much zakat do you give? You give 1%, you give 10%, you give 50%, you give 20%. How much? Where do you find rubu' dinar? In the Quran. You don't find it in the Quran. You find it where? In the Sunnah. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, right? Fast from the okay, what do you eat? How many days do you fast? Right? 30 days. Fasting, you have a little more details about it in the Quran. What's the sunnah of fasting? Right? What do you do if you miss a day? What if you do if you're sick? Alhamdulillah, we have a lot more details in the Quran than we do about the other pillars about what? About fasting. What about Hajj? Right? Some of the arkan, right? Like making ihram. Where do you make your ihram from? Is that mentioned in the Quran? Not mentioned in the Quran. You don't know where to make iqar from. Right? Hudayfa, Qaran Manazil, Yalamlam, all of these places, right? Where do you make ihram? You don't know except if you refer back to the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, brother.
So how about if somebody has like a whispering or waswasa? That's like, every time they have to start over again their wudu. Sometimes they do like 5-6 times before they start the prayer.
No. This is something which is common and becoming more common because many of our brothers and sisters don't take care of their personal hygiene, and they don't take care of their istinja. Because the places where the majority of the jinn and the shayateen hang out is where? The bathrooms. Many times this affects brothers and sisters who aren't making supplication when they become intimate with their spouses and they sleep while they're junub, things like this. Many times this affects brothers and sisters who may walk around the house naked, okay, and not say Bismillah before they remove their clothing, before they get intimate with their spouses and things like this. When you say Bismillah and you remove off their clothes, you're putting a hijab, you're putting a barrier between you and who? The jinn and shayateen, they can't see you. So these small things, these are things that can protect us and help us from these things which affect many of our brothers and sisters, such as what? Such as waswasa. Waswasa, which is when you make wudu, you start making wudu, you said Bismillah, then you start washing your hands, then you go to your face, and then you say, oh, I forgot to wash my hands. And then you go back to wash your hands. And then you go through the whole wudu like this until you're repeating it 4 or 5 times. So what the individual should do who has this waswasa, number 1, they should say the supplications that are narrated from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Read to himself, right? Read the Quran, read the adhkar when you enter in the bathroom. After you use the bathroom, right? Ghufranaka, say these supplications and things like this. Say Bismillah before you start. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Then start making wudu. Wa asta'inu billah wa asta'idh billahi minash shaitanir rajim.
But you still can't repeat the wudu. You still have to repeat the wudu again. Because you totally forget. Right?
Somebody who has waswasa?
Uh-huh.
Well, depends. I mean, if he made his wudu one time and he completed his wudu the whole time, then khalas, he's fulfilled the obligation that he's fulfilled. But if he keeps repeating it and things like this, sometimes these people, they need companions to be with them. Be like, hey brother, you made wudu already. You finished your wudu. You're done. Alhamdulillah, you did every organ. You're okay. So I think with more recitation of the Quran, more recitation of adhkar, inshallah, the waswasa will go away. But if he does it once and he's sure, he has more certainty than more doubt, then he should go with the certainty and leave what? Leave the doubt. Okay? Go with the certainty and leave the doubt.
If a person keeps questioning that and goes on, then that will go back to the intellect. Because one of the things, the conditions for a person who has to pray is his intellect must be sound. So if you can't remember 5 minutes ago if you perform wudu and you keep going back and forth, then it may, you may not be sound enough to pray.
Well, waswasa is one thing.
Well, I don't know if it specifically if it was the waswasa or not. Yeah. But I mean, because I've had that question asked before, and the Sheikh was mentioning that this person's intellect may be in question as well.
Okay.
Because,
that could be a consideration. That could be a consideration. But normally, when somebody has waswasa, it normally,
just whisper saying, "Oh, you broke it."
Yeah, it's yourself talking to yourself, saying, "Oh, I forgot. Oh, I broke my wudu." It's the shaitan playing with you, basically.
Right.
Shaitan whispering in your ear and playing with you, and things like that. That's why you should always seek refuge in Allah from the shaitan and say the adhkar. And inshallah, the shaitan will not affect you when you make the wudu. And Allah knows best.